Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar in collaboration with CEnv, the Society for the Environment, on your journey to chartership with the IES. This is the first webinar in a mini-series with CEnv. I'm exploring registrations at the IES. Next week, we'll be talking about the Registered Environmentalist and Technician, and then the following week, we're going to be looking at the CEnv across the environmental sector. We'll pop the links for those events and in the chat towards the end of the webinar if you'd like to sign up for one of those. My name is Rhiannon Humphreys, and I am the Education and Professional Development Officer here at the IES. I'll be giving a brief overview of the CEnv registration and how you can become CEnv with us. And then we'll be joined by Stephanie Mailer, who is currently the Head of Capability for Arcadis's Environment, Safety and Industry business in the UK, alongside her role as Senior Technical Director in the Sustainability, Climate and Carbon team. She has over 17 years experience within the environmental consultancy sector and has become both CEnv and CSI, as well as being one of our volunteer CEnv assessors as well. She'll speak about her experience of becoming CEnv, what benefit it's brought to her career, and at the end, we'll give some of her top tips as a CEnv assessor. As always, there'll be the chance for questions at the end of the presentation, so please do use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen at any point during the presentation, and we'll be able to answer your questions later on. So a brief introduction really to what is a chartership, although I'm sure for those of you who are here this morning, it's already on your radar. It's a uniquely British concept, and it approves and it's awarded by the Privy Council, who approves the standards and gives external oversight. In the case of the IES, we don't have our own chartership, but we're awarded it by the CEnv, who licenses us to award the chartership to our members. I'll talk a little bit about the CEnv in a moment. There's a general recognition that within the professional sector, chartership is the qualification that you might work towards after graduating. However, there are now increasing opportunities for professional qualifications before that, like the RNP. Apologies, my presentation has a mind of its own, it's skipping ahead of me. So why become chartered? Really, it creates a point of difference between yourself and your colleagues or competitors, and it proves that you are a competent expert. It enhances your professional status, and it is proof of quality of your skills. Oh, sorry about that. It is also independent verification of your skills in a peer review environment, and it demonstrates these to both your employers and your clients. Stephanie is going to talk quite a bit about sort of the benefit that CEnv has brought her in her career. So I'm doing just a bit more of a light touch here. But there may be some cases where clients or companies might request chartered individuals, or it might just help you win some work for your company. It is also evidence of your commitment to continuous professional development and ongoing learning through an audited process. And it can give you the opportunity to be an expert witness and work on groundbreaking cases and world firsts. And which may have significant repercussions for the larger sector. Being a member of a PSRB is one way of demonstrating your competence, but it's not necessarily a blanket rule, which means chartership, as it's a very well-established system, is great for demonstrating this competence above and beyond professional body membership. You can see here a brief excerpt from a salary survey shows that our chartered members do tend to have, on average, about a 33% higher salary than our non-chartered members. So that just shows how chartership can set you apart from membership as well. So the Society for the Environment, or CEnv, is the organisation that awards the Chartered Environmentalist. And the IES actually helped to found it, so we've got a bit of influence over the development and the standards of the CEnv. Professional bodies are the professional bodies that sit under the Society for the Environment are generally quite focused on environmental issues, and by being a chartered environmentalist, you can also go to CEnv events that may be relevant to you as environmental scientists. So a little bit about the CEnv here. the emphasis is really on sustainability. And in order to apply for your CEnv, you must be a full or fellow member of the IES. This means that you will likely hold either a bachelor's or a master's degree in a relevant area and have 5 or 6 years professional experience on top of that. To apply, you must submit a report, a long form CV, and undertake an interview. And we'll talk more about our processes for that later. There are around 7,500 CEnvs registered, not just in the UK, but around the world. And the IES holds, or that 699 is a little old now, we hold just over 700 chartered environmentalists ourselves. You can apply through 2 routes, and they come with different costs. And we do have a workshop option, which is an incredibly supportive way to achieve your CEnv. We'll break down the competencies a little bit here. So in order to apply for your chartership, as I said, you must already be a full member. So being granted full membership of the IES can also let you know that you are ready for your chartership. That's awarded sort of on a points-based system. And like I said, there's around 5 or 6 years of professional experience expected in order to apply for chartership. We have, the competencies are split over 4 main sections. In the A section, it's really about your knowledge of sustainable development theory and putting that into practice. So what sustainable development definitions or tools you might use or apply to your work, and how you can use that to really analyze your work. It also talks about your ability to tackle complex problems and identify appropriate solutions and methodologies that really align with the sustainable nature of your work. In the B section, it moves on to more general knowledge and behaviors, talking about influencing behavior change or implementing a cultural change, reflecting on what that change was and how you brought it about. And that's a change in securing environmental improvements. So the focus really is on sustainability still here. There's also a competence on your ability for a strategic approach. So showing that you've implemented or influenced a strategy, again, with the end goal of environmental improvement. And in B3, the last competency in the B section, it asks you to critically analyze your leadership and management skills, demonstrating times when you've been effective leaders or managers. The B section really does highlight the expected level of chartership candidates and why there's sort of a minimum 5-ish years professional experience recommended, so that you have had all of the relevant experience in order to reference that in your report and in your interview. The C section analyzes your communication skills, giving examples of when you personally have handled a challenging negotiation or conflict situation, and reflecting on how you tailor your communications to suit a variety of audiences. And the last section, the D section of the competencies, is a lot more about your professional practice. It asks about your own approach to your CPD, and it confirms that you understand the importance of and agree to codes of conduct. And there's also a really interesting question in there about environmental ethical dilemmas. We get so many queries from people wondering if they are really ready for chartership. And the chances are that if you have had those sufficient years experience, then you do have the skills necessary to become chartered. It's usually more a question of confidence than anything else. And that is what our workshops and our supportive systems are for. Smooth segue there. So what is our approach to charterships? We've got 3 pillars here. The first is support, and this comes through in our amount of guidance, our workshops, and our chartership mentoring scheme. The second is speed. It can take up to 18 months sometimes to complete the process. So we recognize that some of our members might need to achieve their chartership quickly. Maybe if there is pressure around work for a promotion or a particular bid for work. And so we make sure that our process is as speedy, as speedy as possible to enable you to achieve those additional goals. Our regular assessment panels are about once a month, and all of our interviews at the moment are held remote. It can make assessing a little bit more complex, but it does mean that we've not been held up by the restrictions of COVID. And it also, and the third pillar is rigor. We've done this process for many, many years, and we are one of the most active members in terms of the recruitment of new CEnvs. We've mentored hundreds of candidates through the process, and we've trained assessors to ensure our high but fair qualities and standards of assessment. So, what can your route to chartership with the IES be? Once you've ticked off the sufficient experience and you've become a full member, then you can start applying for your chartership. As it's a reflective process, it does require that bit of experience, and our processes can help you apply your reflection suitably to your professional experience. We run our CEnv in a day workshops. These happen about twice a month, and we have found that they are the most useful things for candidates who often cite that maybe the lack of time or the lack of motivation to complete the process is one of the biggest obstacles to achieving their CEnv. For our workshops, it's a pretty simple process. You just submit an application form and you select your date for the workshop. In the morning, over the course of the morning, our facilitator will guide you through all of the competencies. There are just 5 candidates per workshop, so you get to have a really collaborative space, discussing between you the preparation you've already done, the experience and the examples that you are bringing to each of the competencies, and do some additional analysis of your skills. Once you've been through all of the competencies, the afternoon is spent continuing to develop your report, and you'll have the opportunity for one-to-one tailored in-depth feedback from our facilitator. Now, CEnv in a day has sort of become CEnv in 2 days due to the pandemic. And now candidates are interviewed the following day. You'll meet with 2 of our experienced assessors. You'll meet Stephanie later on, and most of our assessors are just as lovely as she is. And you have the opportunity for that professional review interview. It's a bit of a structured conversation, but it's really an opportunity for you to demonstrate your skills, competence, and abilities throughout your career as an environmental professional. Following that, once you have passed, you will submit evidence of your ongoing learning each year. And this is part of our CPD audit. The other route to achieving chartership is self-guided. And this is when you decide to complete the application in your own time and in your own time. We have a detailed information pack that can support you to complete the application. And once your written report has been approved, we will then invite you for an interview. And similarly, whichever route you choose, you'll be asked to submit evidence of ongoing learning afterwards annually. In the odd occasion that you don't necessarily pass the first time, we have an incredibly supportive network of chartership mentors. It's never been easier to get your mentor, and we've got a brand new platform that we use to match you up with an appropriate chartered member who can help you with whatever it is that you need help with, whether it is a bit of report editing, some interview practice, or really just going through your skills and experience and mapping them to the competencies. We've got a number of chartership mentors who'll be happy to help. And we have additional safety nets put in by us in the office. If you do choose the workshop route, you get an additional pack of pre-workshop documents that really help you prepare for that workshop. Candidates may prepare around sort of 16 to 20 hours before the workshop. And that's when you sort of make the notes, you do a little bit of that reflection on your career, and you start inputting some examples or evidence into your report template. Feedback from candidates is that they have really enjoyed the workshops, both interacting with the facilitator and getting the feedback from them, but also meeting the other workshop candidates and the reflective process that you'll go through as part of the workshop. I'd say around 95% of chartered environmentalists with the IES do go through the workshop route. it is by far our more popular route. And we have a really high pass rate with the workshop route as well. We have included the costs here. So the £499 is for your workshop. And both of the costs include your registration through to the end of that calendar year. And the fees for the self-guided route are split into the the report stage and the interview stage, and altogether it's £318. If you do require, we get this question sometimes, if you do require to be re-interviewed or to resubmit your report, you can do that with no additional cost. And we do want to support you as much as we can to achieving your registration. So there are some useful resources that we have on our website. The CEnv information pack is available to download, and will tell you everything that you need to know about both of the routes. Our website also has some additional information, and the CEnv website too is a great source for more information about the charterships. Like I said, if you do sign up for the workshop, the pre-workshop documents are really your best resource. It'll take you through step by step, helping you to prepare. And we are in the process of developing tailored guidance for some of our communities. So if you are applying as a land conditional professional, do make sure to let us know so that we can give you the additional land condition and guidance. Other communities and other areas will be getting guidance later on this year. So that is your whistle-stop tour from me through charterships and how you can achieve them with us. I can see some questions have come through, which is fantastic. And now I'm going to hand over to Stephanie to talk about her experiences.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Brilliant. Afternoon, everyone. So Rhiannon asked me to come on and share my experiences with you as to how being chartered has benefited my career or supported my development. So I'll take you on a little journey through my career and how I think chartership has supported me. In terms of, I suppose, taking it back to the start, why I decided to become chartered, I do vividly remember at the time thinking about what route was best for me, and I was drawn to the IES because of the broader focus around sustainable development that the organisation had. My job at the time was with a medium-sized engineering firm within the land quality team, and my role was quite varied within that team, being a small organisation. So everything from phase 1 desk studies through to designing site investigations, actually doing the site investigation, collecting and analysing the data, then doing the quantitative human health, groundwater or ground gas risk assessments that came from that, through to designing the remedial works and then supervising those and then undertaking the verification. So I felt like I undertook a wide range of activities within the kind of land contamination arena, I suppose. And I felt like IES would give me a qualification that was reflective of that broad range of skills. So yeah, and also thinking about the sustainable development piece, I quite liked how it was aligned to I suppose, the reason that I decided to go into consultancy, which was really about promoting sustainable development broadly. So there was, yeah, a nice alignment there. So I think in terms of how it's benefited me, from the start, I found the whole process actually really informative. So the workshop itself, I remember meeting individuals who had actually very different roles to me. And I think that helped kind of kick-started a wider consideration for me of the environment sector generally. I think prior to that, I was slightly siloed in land quality, just by nature of the fact that, you know, that was the area that I had most experience with. You know, so going to the workshop actually made me start thinking more broadly, and then going to the follow-up CPD events helped broaden my knowledge and experience of the sector, and actually the macro trends driving the sector. And then relating that back to me as an environmental professional and what skills I needed to try and develop. So I do think that actually it really helped just put a slightly broader lens on me as an individual, and understanding the trends and the kind of the landscape in which you operate as an environmental professional, I think is actually really important, and something that the IES does emphasise through its programme. So I remember being really, really proud to get chartered. I did find it, nerve-wracking and challenging, but I definitely came out of it thinking I've gained a lot from this experience. And I got my little metal badge. And I don't know if you still give those out, Rhiannon, but yeah, I've still got it. And I remember being really proud. It really boosted my confidence. The fact that it was recognised that I held a level of expertise in my subject. So a really positive process. I think, it's a starting point for understanding my role and the wider, the kind of wider journey for me towards encompassing sustainability more broadly, both for myself and the way that I advise my clients. So in terms of my technical skills development, taking it from that sort of point of land contamination, I think alongside that wider awareness, I then gradually became more involved on advising clients on issues outside of land contamination. So I progressed through to environmental health and safety due diligence, and then environmental and social advisory, working with clients on international development projects, for example. Through that time, I was lucky enough to go to places like Senegal, work on projects across Africa, and also the South Pacific, although I didn't get to visit that project, which is slightly disappointing. So during these times, especially, I remember working with internationally renowned specialists of the kind of environmental and social field, and it actually really helped me to have that CEnv to fall back on. I remember vividly making sure that my email footer had my CEnv qualification on it, just so I could feel a little bit more confident when I was having these discussions with these specialists. So I've continued to diversify my career, and I do use the IES resources a lot to support my learning, and I'd encourage all of you to do that, as you've got access to such insightful resources and publications. And it does just help you keep current. So I've moved through environmental and social advisory, and latterly moving towards corporate sustainability. So I support clients with their sustainability strategies and the measures that they need to put in place as an organisation, overcoming some of those challenges that they face when they really want to embed sustainability effectively into their organisation. I've been lucky enough to do some great projects in that vein. So I've worked with one of the top 5 global automotive manufacturers, studying how they manage environmental risk globally. And I travelled across Europe looking at their manufacturing sites, their sales and after sales facilities, and their R&D facilities, to try and understand what controls they needed to put in place to effectively manage their environmental risk and sustainability issues from a corporate global perspective. So that was a really, really good project. And actually reading publications like the Systems Approach for Tackling Environmental Issues, which the IES published, and others, actually reinforced to me something I feel quite strongly about, which is actually we have to have a holistic approach to tackling these complex issues. We have to advise our clients in a holistic manner. And that kind of multidiscipline, broad skill set is becoming ever more important in consultants. You don't have to be a technical specialist in everything, but just having a broader understanding really enables you to have productive conversations with your clients. So that's something that definitely resonated with me. So now I sit on the sustainability leadership team for the sustainability advisory part of our business. We have team members with a huge range of technical skills, from carbon accountants to climate adaptation specialists, energy strategy, ESG, etc. And we work very closely with others in the business on other topics related to sustainability, like biodiversity, natural capital, social value, and also importantly key enablers like funding and finance specialists, because obviously without the funding and finance, a lot of these initiatives can't move forwards. I love this role. It's a really interesting, wide-ranging role, and it definitely is supported by my wider awareness that being a chartered environmentalist brings. I do find I have to keep myself up to date with market trends, with legislative developments, with key events on the kind of international arena like COP26. And I do always find myself returning to the IES resources as a point of reference and knowledge. It saves me time, makes me look informed, and they're always really useful. So I think that's just a high level overview of my technical career. So I think you can, well, hopefully see from that actually being chartered has boosted my confidence and given me access to resources that have supported my development and also helped me think more broadly, which I think has again supported my technical development. So Moving on to the kind of other area, I suppose, in terms of development is the leadership, the kind of leadership area of development. And I think that's something that it's highlighted within the competencies, and sometimes can be challenging if you feel like you haven't gained enough leadership skills at a more junior level. But actually, these things progress over your career, and I think you can find examples of leadership. They then just change over time as you then get more exposure to leadership roles. So don't be intimidated by thinking about how you lead, or how, within your sphere of influence, how you lead. So yeah, my leadership journey. I'm currently a pursuits director for Arcadis. So as a part of that, I look at all of the opportunities that come into the business. That can be anything from big framework opportunities with big clients like Homes England, so multidiscipline frameworks for big schemes, development schemes, to actually working with our technical specialists on new areas or new services that we need to offer, particularly around sustainability at the moment, net zero carbon, how we take our services to our clients and make them relevant to support our client need. Actually, to Rhiannon's point earlier, we often see the need for putting forwards how many chartered staff we've got within framework bids. So it's actually quite important for Arcadis as an organisation to encourage our staff for a number of reasons to be chartered, but one of them is because we are getting asked more and more within our bids that we see. So a role like that requires me to have a broad knowledge of technical topics, and also critically to be able to actually communicate those in layman's terms. So another competency that's brought through from the IES is communication of the environmental case. And I think that, again, that learning will support you as a professional. Communication is key across all of my roles and for us all in our day-to-day jobs. And so, again, a core competency like that is very valuable. So last but not least, in terms of my roles, my head of capability role, which is a new role for Arcadis, for me in Arcadis. And I work with all of our staff across the business, so that's about 500, to ensure that we have high standards of quality around our technical delivery. And also I oversee our graduate programme, how we want to develop our future skills, and really understanding how we need to respond to the market. And again, having the insight from the IES and actually the understanding of the market is really, really useful in terms of this role. So although it's probably hard to quantify and put a value on being chartered, I think it just brings you so many benefits on a number of levels in terms of your confidence, your market awareness, so that actually you're in a your technical skills, so that you're actually in a better place to respond to opportunities as they come to you. So I think that's something that definitely is my takeaway. I've been better positioned to take advantage of opportunities because of my chartered status. So just briefly to touch on my role as a chartership assessor, I think I got asked a few years ago now, to be an assessor. I thought it would be interesting, and it has been a really brilliant experience, and I enjoy it very much. I learn so much from each candidate. So don't think that you're coming in to kind of talk to an expert per se. That I may not necessarily be an expert in the field that you operate in, and I'm always keen to learn and understand what you do, your motivations, some of the challenges that you have, and in your area of expertise. So yeah, it's really enjoyable. I'm always impressed by the insight, the level of dedication, and the focus and determination of the people that I meet. I think something that we all have as environmental professionals, sustainability professionals, is a passion for what we do, and that certainly comes through with every candidate. If I can give you some advice, it's just to say that it's my job really as an assessor to help you be the best that you can be. I'm not here to try and trip you up. I'm not here to find negatives. I'm here to ask the right questions, to draw out the information that will support me in showing that you meet those competencies. So please, come into it sort of understanding that this is a nice, positive, collaborative discussion, and it should be enjoyable for you, because it's really enjoyable for me generally. So, so I suppose top tips would be: don't be nervous, have confidence in yourself. You're there for a reason. Study the competencies, and just make sure that you've got one or two examples of good competency, of good case studies to draw from, so that you're just not flustered when you come into the interview, that you can actually quickly just pull those out of your mind and explain them. Something that I've noticed is a real differentiator between a strong candidate and perhaps one that's less so is a solid understanding of the bigger picture, and the macro trends that are driving the kind of area in which you operate. I think that your role will always fit into a wider context, and the best candidates have an understanding of how their role fits into the bigger picture. And that then onwardly helps with other competencies like understanding trends in your sector and analysing complex problems. So I think that's probably something that I would say is a takeaway. And the last one is enjoy it, because hopefully it's a really positive experience for you, and yeah, it should be something that you gain value from, and it shouldn't be something that that you find difficult. So that's it really. I think you can see that there's no negatives from me in terms of my chartership and membership. So yeah, good luck guys. That's it.
Fantastic. Stephanie, thank you so much. That was really interesting to hear from yourself, about your own experiences, and especially your top tips. And I would just echo that. I think confidence is one of the biggest things, just to have confidence going into the process. So we've had quite a few questions through. Most of them are a bit more logistical, so I'll start answering those. But please, if you do have any other questions, we also have Sarah Ridgen from CEnv on the call with us, so she can answer any questions that are more on the CEnv side of things. I can answer anything IES-y, and if you have any more questions for Stephanie about sort of her career, her experience, and the CEnv and anything she's about, please do keep the Q&A box. So I'm just going to pick up on a couple of questions to start. So we've had, how can you become a chartered member of CEnv? So the Society for the Environment, they award other people, other professional bodies, the opportunity to become chartered. So the IES is one of those bodies, and there are quite a few others as well that allow you to complete the process through them. So there's also been a question about if you're already a member of the Institute of Water. I do believe they also offer the CEnv. So if you wanted to achieve it through the Institute of Water, you'd be very welcome to apply through them. But if you also wanted to go through one of our routes and maybe use one of our workshops, you would also need to be a member of the IES to do that. Once you've got your Chartered Environmentalist, you can transfer that between different professional bodies that are underneath the Society for the Environment umbrella. But that does allow you to sort of choose the body that either most aligns to you and your work, or the route that you would like to choose to pursue your Chartered Environmentalist. In terms of, there was a question about the price of membership. We do offer concessionary rates for people who might be underneath a particular certain income threshold, or might be on a career break. So you can always discuss your situation with the IES admin and membership team if you're thinking about applying, and we can take that conversation from there. So there was a question which was, I don't hold a bachelor's or a master's, and will this restrict me? Different professional bodies will have different requirements for becoming a member of them and for pursuing a chartership through them. For us, we run our membership on a points-based system, which means that you need to get a certain number of points in order to become a full member. And you get these points or these units from both academic qualification and years spent in relevant professional experience. So it's 12 units to become a full member. And it's you get 6 units for a bachelor's and 7 for a master's. And then the additional units are made up by your full year's professional experience. So if you have had quite a lengthy career in the environmental sector, but it's just not underpinned by one of those qualifications, you should still be eligible and be able to apply. The only area I might emphasize, which Stephanie's also picked up on, is the bigger picture conversation, and actually looking at the sustainable development theory side of things. That is usually where you might want to do a little bit of brushing up. A lot of people tend to reference their bachelor's or master's when talking about sustainable development. But apart from that, if you are eligible for full membership, you can definitely apply if you're a Chartered Environmentalist. In terms of when the upcoming dates for CEnv in a day might be, we are taking a very brief hiatus over the summer. So our dates will start in September. We'll have, again, with 2 workshops a month in September, October, and November. And those dates will be published on our website shortly. If you are really interested, we do also have an interested candidates list. So again, you can get in touch with our admin team. I'll pop their email address in the chat in a moment. And you can ask them to be added to the interested lists to find out first when the dates are released. So we've had a few more questions in, so I'm just going to take a quick look. Brilliant. So I'm going to take the questions about CPD in a moment, and I think Stephanie, we might ask you as well if you have any recommendations in terms of undertaking CPD. In terms of working in a number of environmental sectors, so when it comes to evidencing your report, you can choose really whatever examples you would like to choose. And because the report is sort of based on environmental work and on sustainable development, it is beneficial if those examples do relate to environmental work. But they don't have to come from your most recent role, and they can come really from any point in your career, as long as you think that they are evidencing your skills at a high enough level to be at the high enough chartered level. And that also sort of applies to, there's a question about writing about every competency and whether or not you've got the experience in some of those areas. You do need to demonstrate experience in all areas, in all of the competencies. But for some of those competencies, you might be able to interpret them in a way that really suits your professional experience. So, for example, we've got a couple of a competency that's about your leadership and management skills. Now, not everyone 5 or 6 years into their career will necessarily have had line management opportunities, but you will certainly have had project management opportunities. And not all management of other people is sort of as linear as line management. You can also talk about your sort of lateral management. So if you consider yourself to be a little bit more of that manager or organizer within a team, and also upwards management. You know, sometimes those that manage you might need a little bit of managing or holding. And if you do any of that as well, it's a fantastic way to sort of demonstrate your own interpretation of those skills and how that applies to your work and your experience. Sorry, I'm just catching the questions here. We do have, in terms of our pre-workshop documents, they include some suggested reading that might help understand some of those other competencies. And we ran a series last summer, a hot seat webinar where we focused on different aspects of the competencies. And one of those did talk about more specifically leadership and management, and getting into some of the more challenging competencies. As well as exploring them in the workshop. We might be able to, I think those recordings are available on YouTube, so you'll be able to go back and have a look at some of those details. In terms of this CEnv being recognised abroad, Sarah, would you like to take that one so people can have a break from my voice for a moment?
Thanks, Rhiannon. Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to be on the webinar as well. So just on answering your question, I think it's important to say, I suppose, that the CEnv is sort of at the current time, I suppose, quite UK based. At the moment, there's about 15% of CEnvs based outside of the UK, and that is a growing number though, and it's certainly something that we're looking to increase the international spread of CEnv, and it is increasingly recognised elsewhere. But yeah, at the moment it is sort of quite UK based.
And I think following on from that, we've had a question about whether the CEnv in a day has a virtual opportunity for those who are abroad. And yes, one of the real benefits, I think, with the pandemic was that we moved our workshops online, which has made it a lot more accessible. And we've had candidates join from Indonesia, from Australia, a couple from America as well. The time difference can get a little bit challenging towards the end of the workshop. We've had people working on their reports at sort of 2 or 3 in the morning, but we do really welcome overseas candidates to attend the workshops and to be a part and to achieve their CEnv. There has been a question about whether or not it's worth sort of achieving your CEnv before or after you've moved to the UK. And I think with its increasing international reputation, there's nothing stopping you from going for it now. If anything, that might be a benefit when or if you do come over, that you've already achieved that qualification, and it's not something you have to be concerned about after arriving. I believe that there are just questions about CPD remaining at the moment. So I'll briefly touch on that CPD. As IES members, and definitely as chartered members, you agree to undertake a certain amount of additional learning per year. That learning can fall into a number of categories, and it includes sort of formal learning, so going for additional qualifications or a master's, for example, as well as work-based learning, self-directed learning, and that sort of thing. The really crucial part is that if it is any work-based learning, to make sure that you're talking about things that are sort of outside of your general day-to-day job role. If it's something that you would be doing anyway, it may not strictly read as CPD, but if it's things that you're doing where you're looking for that extra learning, that extra development. And the really crucial thing is in the reflections. So the nature of the activity itself, the content or the formality, isn't necessarily always as important as your ability to demonstrate how that activity has really benefited you. I think the question, was about working with environmental contractors, undertaking remediation of oil spillages. Now, if this is something that you get to do, every so often, and they really come across as learning experiences for you, you can include that as work-based learning, and really talk about what you learned from that experience and how it has helped you to develop as a professional. As long as there's some of that learning in there, that is what we're really looking for in your CPD records. And yes, it's fantastic to have a student member in this webinar, and it's great to see that you're already thinking about your career development. I would highly recommend the RNT webinar next week. And yes, as soon as you do become a professional member, the CPD recording area will appear for you in your membership area, and you'll be able to input CPD and historical CPD as well. The IES is working on expanding our CPD offerings, and either signposting to our own events or to other events to our members more clearly. It's one of the things that we're working on this year as well. So do keep an eye out on our website and any emails that you might get about additional and alternative CPD options. There really are lots of webinars and conferences at the moment, but there are other things that you can do for CPD as well as the work-based learning. And I can see we're overrunning slightly here, but I do just want to ask Stephanie if you have any suggestions or recommendations for the sorts of CPD that one might want to pursue, either to become CEnv or once they are already CEnv.
It's a good question. There's so much out there, isn't there, that I think it's down to personal choice, and just having a clear idea of perhaps where your skills gaps are and where there's areas that actually you want to develop, like you said, outside of your day-to-day role. So I always take the approach to mine is, what's my business as usual kind of work, and actually what do I need to develop, where do I need to maybe be a bit more innovative and upskill myself and that kind of thing. So I've always tried to do CPT that has a direct and relevant benefit to me. So absolutely, all the webinars are great that you guys provide, and and there's lots of other organisations that aren't membership organisations that you'll find webinars out there as well. So it's, you know, it's good to try and, you know, look at as many of those as possible. And yeah, try and get your work to support you with, you know, doing relevant courses as well, or perhaps something slightly left field that you wouldn't have considered, you know, that might just give you a totally different skill set, which, yeah, is always worth thinking about as well. But yeah, I think there's a lot of choice, basically, isn't there? I think. Sorry, that's not so helpful because I can't pinpoint specific sources, but yeah, just think about really where you want to focus your skills development, I suppose, would be my advice.
And I think that is fantastic advice. Part of the CPD process is reflecting on the skills that you've got and what you would like to develop. So it will be really to each person. We have also had people record, coaching junior football clubs with teaching them management and leadership skills. It may not be directly environmentally related, but as long as there's that link towards the professional skills that it has helped you to develop, then these things can also definitely be valid CPD. A couple of questions left, and then we will let you get on. I know we've overrun a little. In terms of, so you've got an environmentally related master's in the degree, a master's degree from the UK, but now doing a job on carbon disclose. I reckon if you feel that your work is environmental in nature, if you feel that you are sort of sustainable development in the work that you're doing, then chances are the Chartered Environmentalist is suitable for you. If you think that you may not be working quite at a chartered level of environmental work, but you're still doing a lot of environmental work, the Registered Environmental Practitioner route, which is a level 5 qualification, whereas the Chartered Environmentalist is the level 7-1. For the IES, at least, our membership application process will give you an idea of whether your work is relevant and whether you are eligible and appropriate for applying for CEnv. And last question, just on the fees. Yes, the membership fees do just cover your membership, and any workshop or chartership application fees are on top of that. But those application fees and workshop fees cover your CEnv registration, which will in years after you achieve it be sort of tied into your IES membership fee as well. So it can be a little can get a little complicated in there, but because it's what you pay for the workshop and for the assessments there. As someone who has a master's and a PhD in environmental science, are there any different routes? It is the same route, but you might find that you are perhaps a little bit more used to maybe the academic writing that comes as part of the CEnv report. PhD candidates, PhD CEnv candidates tend to have slightly different reports. They are directed slightly differently, but still really interesting work that comes through there. If you do have any more specific questions, you're very welcome to get in touch with the office and we can discuss that further. And the very last one from Rachel, the guidance for applicants with land condition background. Do get in touch if you have applied for a workshop and you haven't received that information, let us know. And also let us know if you are submitting a self-guided application. I can see that the admin team's email address has been popped into the chat. So just shoot them a quick message and they will be able to get back to you with the guidance. I think all that is left for me is to say thank you so much for joining this afternoon. I hope it has been a useful 50 minutes or so. And if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.